time for Pod of the Dead.
We are good to go. All right. Hello and welcome to Pod of the Dead, the internet horror film club that nobody asked for. I am your host, Nicholas, and with me, as always, are the two final girls, Stephanie.
Hello.
And Natasha.
Hi, guys.
On today's episode, we are covering the 2014 horror film, The Babadook,
Which is a psychological horror film written and directed by Jennifer Kent in her feature directorial debut, based on her 2005 short film, Monster. It stars Essie Davis, Noah Weissman, among others, which follows a widowed single mother who, with her son, must confront the mysterious humanoid monster in their home.
So before this week's homework and stuff, what are your girls' history with this film?
It's one that's kind of been tossed around on my streaming services. I had seen it. I've heard people talk about it. All I knew was it was kind of like a boogeyman. Mm-hmm. But that's really it. I hadn't seen it otherwise.
I didn't have any knowledge about anything, about nothing. Like, I didn't know it was, and I didn't even see the cover of it until we started going to watch it. And I was like, what the fuck is that cover? And then that was about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
openly were like,
zero.
The cover came up and you were like, this looks like shit.
Yeah. So
you instantly were like on your heels, like, what the fuck? Because the reason we covered this film was off air. Maybe it was in bonus content. I asked you girls, like, just kind of theming and time era and stuff like that. Like, what kind of movie do you want? And it basically honed in, and we got to The Babadook. So that's why we're covering it. It's not that you girls picked it like right off the bat, but like what you girls were talking about and everything funneled us in there. And It makes sense because if you look on IMDb and it's like more films like this, it gives us It Follows, Sinister, The Witch, Hereditary, The Conjuring. It's definitely in that kind of like that grouping of films.
Yeah.
So in 2014 this came out. What do you believe its budget was?
2014.
We're just gonna have $2 million.
All right.
5.
Ding, 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 ding. Tasha, $2 million.
Yay!
Yay!
Of its total budget, 30,000 of it was raised via Kickstarter. Most of the funds raised from Kickstarter were channeled towards the art department. But a big thing about this was, I believe, most, if not all of it, was crowdfunded. So director Jennifer Kent stated that American distributors were willing to help raise the budget on the condition that the Babadook something at the end. Kent refused, as the Babadook represents certain things, which I'm refraining from saying stuff because I don't want to ruin it. But she stuck to her thing and was just like, no, this movie needs to be made the way that I want it to be made because everything about this matters. And the movie was financed through crowdfunding completely. So this was, I regardless of whether I like or dislike this film, when I hear that kind of stuff, I'm like, fuck yeah. Like it, because that's so much about art, you know, like
it's like an indie film basically.
Yeah,
so that's
I'm
cool.
doing what I want to do. Like, this was released through IFC channel, I believe, and it's Australian, because that was one of the first things I noticed. Like, the little like thing came up, I was like, oh wait, I remember this because that's the same production whatever that Talk to Me came through, and I was like,
okay.
So
Okay.
it's probably distributed through them and everything. But my history with this film is I was very aware of it and everything, and I remember turning it on, starting it, maybe got 10 minutes into it and had to do something else, and never returned for some reason. That and the amount of memes that have come out from this film of when the mother and son are in the car and she's basically just going, why can't you be normal? And then the kid is just screaming. So many times it'll be like, you know, like parents talking to their kids that listen to death metal. It's just like that kind of stuff. So like it's a very memed movie and everything. So
Okay. That's cute.
but on its $2 million budget, what do you believe it brought in the box office?
Did it have a wide release?
Yes, it did.
But for a weekend? Or like actual?
It had a wide release. It had a legitimate release. These are legitimate questions because, like, what was it? Killer Clowns from Outer Space was released for one weekend in one theater.
Yeah. And it was like, how much money do you make in one theater on one weekend? So I mean,
Yeah. In a tiny town.
yeah.
It made 5 buttons.
Yeah. I want to say this made like 5.2.
3 million.
It made $10.5 million.
Wow.
What?
Making it the 12th highest grossing horror film for 2014.
Wow.
This movie, in a way, is regarded as the best horror film of 2014.
Okay.
Specifically when, like, referring to, like, Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes and things like that. Because, like, for 2014, the top 10 horror films were The Pyramid, The Quiet Ones, Paranormal Activity, one of the later ones.
One of them's.
The Woman in Black 2, Devil's Due, As Above, So Below, which I like that one. Oculus,
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Deliver Us from Evil, Ouija, and Annabelle.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think I've only heard of 4 of those.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of those are,
but horror wasn't what horror can be some years because, by God, the box office for just in general in movies, we were real deep into
in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
the Disney and Fox and all that just like ruling the day. So top 10 was The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Big Hero 6, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, X-Men Days of Future Past, Maleficent, Transformers Age of Extinction,
Yay!
The Lego Movie, Captain America Winter Soldier, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, and top film for the year was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Wow. Okay.
There was one original movie in the entire setup. Big Hero 6.
It's all just IP fodder.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think, was it number 11 was Godzilla. I have that clipped off. But yeah, like
one of the many remakes.
Yes.
100%. And like those are the things that, like, for me anyhow, always drive me towards horror for the most part, is because they tend to be lower budget, so like companies are more willing to try out new stories and stuff. But then also the problem with that is once something clicks, then that production company wants to make 30 of them.
Yeah.
You know, Saul and fucking all that shit. So
Terrifier.
yeah. Well, that at least is just fucking independently financed. Like,
that's true.
That's him. That's Damien Leone being like, nah, man, we're just gonna. How many guts can we put in this film? all of them? Can I get
all the guts?
Can I get all of them with a side of extra? So
Literally.
But yeah, some interesting things that happened with this film was the movie had a campaign where you could buy a copy of the handcrafted Babadook pop-up book.
Oh,
that's awesome.
For $80. The first 2,000 copies were numbered and signed by director Jennifer Kent. She's also the writer. That's needed to be known. But this is a singular vision. This is written and directed by Jennifer Kent.
That's cool.
The book contains pop-up pictures as well as additional pages not seen in the movie. The campaign was only open for a limited amount of time and sold roughly 9,500 books. So
wow.
That would be cool. Like, I'm not going to give my take on this, but that would be a cool, like, horror collectible to, like, just have.
I would have
bought
that
on the bookshelf. Yeah.
That's not $80 for that to be, and then possibly if the first 2,000 signed, that's a nice
fucking book.
That's a good price. Yeah.
Like that red cover. Like, it's that's such a like, for lack of a better term, it's such an iconic thing. Like, you know, like there are certain movies that just have this, you know, like Hellraiser has the lament configuration. Talk to Me has the hand.
And Necronomicon for Evil Dead.
Yep. And like this, the Babadook book is such an iconic, albeit like kind of a cult classic, because I think that this movie has definitely got more groundswell, like in streaming and stuff like that, and through word of mouth. But still, at the end of the day, fucking, like, once you see that book in the movie, you're like, uh-oh. Because books never show up in movies that are, like, good times. Like in horror films.
Never. Neither do movies. Movies and books.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
It's either like a haunted journal, it's always haunted. Why can't it be grandma's recipe book? Like, you open it, it's like French toast. But it would normally be like French toast from hell.
Yeah.
Like Gray's recipe box that was left in your old house, Nick.
Oh shit! I fucking forgot about that.
Yeah,
the
Gray
house
left
that
so many things.
Yeah, the house that I'd bought and everything. Did I give that to you, Tasha?
I have it. Yeah.
It was a box of just her handwritten recipes. It was an old lady's recipe catalog.
Oh, that's nice.
So Tasha's the big cook. So I was just like, here, you'll love this. And she's like, oh my God, it's got peasant food from the 30s. I'm gonna make this.
It has some really, really simple things like how to boil noodles or something like that, where it's just like, clearly you could read the box and do this, but she wrote it out and they're so sweet. It's like it's for her husband or 100%, something. 100%.
That's what we came to the conclusion of, because there was some of it that was just like, almost like, now this is what you do, Bob. Like this is like very simple.
Yeah.
It was very cool though.
That's very
That's cool that you still, I completely forgot about that. It's cool that you still have that.
Yeah.
Sweet.
But let's see here, before we get into spoiler territory, let's see if there's anything I can say. So Babadook, it means kind of two different things. In Hebrew, it stands for he is coming for sure.
Okay.
And it's also an anagram for a bad book.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I like the first one better.
But yeah, let's see here. Here we go. So director Jennifer Kent was extremely sensitive about introducing the themes of the film to child actor Noah Wiseman.
Okay.
Yeah. Watching this film, I'm just like, my God, how do you do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. During the 3 weeks of pre-production, she carefully gave him a child-friendly version of what the story was about.
That's cool.
Wiseman's mother was on set throughout the film, and Wiseman himself was never actually present on set during scenes in which Essie Davis's character abuses her son. Davis instead delivered the lines to an actor who stood on his knees. Kent is quoted as saying, "I didn't want to destroy a childhood to make this film." To get the reaction shots of Wiseman looking terrified, Davis said she would say things to him like, "I'm going to take your Legos and throw them into the river."
Which is equally as devastating to a child.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, oh, thank God. Like, because there is a line and there is a specific line in this movie that out loud I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I mean, that was nice because if she did that, then she handled this really tactfully, because like a lot of people will just throw the kids in the deep end and they're like, here, this is your child acting career. Yeah. And like she actually handled this with like, hey, we need to be considerate of this kid and, you know, his mental health status. You know, that speaks volumes.
And it's seamless too, because like it doesn't look like that's on. I would have noticed it. Yeah. Yeah. So that's really good, especially for this being her directorial debut, like as a feature film. She's only done 2 feature films. The other one is called The Nightingale that came out in 2017. And
sounds familiar.
Actually, we're not going to give ratings or anything out loud yet or anything, but it's actually on IMDb rated higher than this film. Okay. If you take that for what it is. But I was like, instantly, I thought I'd heard of that movie. And then I saw she was the director, writer of it. And then it was rated higher than this. And I was like, well, shit. Like, I might have to check that one out. It'll have to go onto my list. I don't even know if it's a horror film. It's just one of those things. I was like, I think she did a really good job of storytelling in this film and everything. So I'm willing to check out another one of her writer-director movies. The interior of Amelia and Samuel's house was completely built inside a studio.
Oh, wow.
They initially thought of building the first and second floors as separate sets, but since the movie involves a lot of running downstairs, they eventually built it as a 2-story set. Wow. Shots through windows to the outside had to be avoided since there was actually only studio outside, and the budget did not allow for backgrounds. The production designers used lots of dark earth tones, and all the props and furniture that were bought had to be painted darker to convey the right mood. The floorboards were purposely worn out to give the house a lived-in quality.
That's really cool to take that account to even like paint the furniture old and worn.
Well, and that's something really interesting, like, because I don't look at this movie and think that this is like a soundstage set. Now, that being said, Steph and I tried to watch the new Expendables movie, and that film, like, I think we got like 15, 20 minutes into it. It is like blatantly, you can tell that it's set design, and then anything that's background is just CG backgrounds.
And it's so like, I love the Expendables movies, and then I got to the fourth one, I was excited to watch it, and then the whole first part of the movie is like so cheesy and so bad.
And not cheesy like, ooh yeah, boom bang pow, just like cringy.
Yeah.
Just like they're phoning it in. Like, people will watch this. Why try?
Well,
it's what it feels like.
There's parts where like they're standing like in doorways to a house and everything, and it just looks like a fucking fake wall built as a set, and like then it's just really bad. So like having watched this and then going to that, not knowing, like, this feels like it's actually like a house. It's like, no, this is a set that was built on a $2 million budget. Like, that has special effects for it's just like, that's fucking crazy. That like this multi-million-dollar action craziness can't make a fucking house look real.
I know.
Not even a house, a doorway.
It's horrible.
So, all right. So,
that's cool.
Girls, want to get into spoiler territory?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So, this is your first time listening to us. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
At the end of the episode, we give out homework for the next week's episode. With that, we are getting ready to go into spoiler territory. If you have not watched The Babadook, it is available on Netflix at this given moment. By the time you listen to this, if you listen to it in the future, God knows where it's at. But it is on Netflix, and it's a quick watch, I'd say. Yeah. It's under 2 hours. I think it's an hour and a half. It's like shy over an hour and a half, you know? So in my book, like that you're giving an extra point right there. You get an hour and a half in and out. Sweet. Yeah. But we're getting ready to go into spoiler territory. So if you don't give a shit about that, stick around. And without any further ado, The Babadook.
If you'd like to be part of our horror film club, make sure to follow us at Instagram, Threads, and Facebook at Pod of the Dead. All of our episodes can be found at podofthedeadorelse.com or wherever you stream music and podcasts. If you have movie recommendations or questions for us, email us at podofthedead666@gmail.com. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Or else.
So with that being said, Stephanie.
Oh.
Give me that 1 out of 10.
Wow, this doesn't happen very often. Okay. Okay, where am I at? All right, here we go. Worst horror film I have ever watched in my whole life.
They have not watched a lot of horror films.
That's not what they said. I am a huge fan of horror movie.
Ooh.
So we'll see.
They really like that one horror movie they saw.
Yeah.
The only other film they've watched is The Exorcist.
Gross. And so I'm expected, especially horror movie. So I expected, especially from reading IMDb review, that this one is going to be a cool movie comparing to The Orphanage and also The Conjuring, which I recently watched in the theater and enjoyed a lot. But this one really this is
It could be a younger person. Like, who knows?
No, I think it's somebody whose English is their second language.
Okay.
But this one really make me wasting my time wondering why it got such a high rating here and making me doubt of the quality of the review. The movie plots have nothing, just a mother and boy walking around and around, trying to make you feel afraid, but not at all. Babadook is in fact nothing but a character in a book, and the movie does in no way make you feel mood in no way make you feel scary, even a bit. I am reading this word for word.
That's fine. It does, in fact, make me feel in mood a bit. So.
I love it when we get like the 1 out of 10s that it makes it seem like they didn't pay attention to the movie.
Yeah.
Like nothing happens. It's just a book character.
They're just walking around and all this stuff. It's like there is definitely like regardless of like whether you like it or not, like to say that this movie does not have like a mood to it is like you have to be pretty checked out, I think, to not pick up on the mood that it's trying to lay down.
After 20 minutes of watching, I began to wonder that it may have an amazing plot at the end that scare us. But after 30 minutes of watching, I began to feel desperate. And for the time left, I was wondering when it will end so I can go out to the theater and do something else. This one is really horrible and wasting your time. Do not watch it. I really regret to waste my time and money on this one.
So the way that they felt watching this is the way that you girls felt watching Pulse.
Probably.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, my God, please be over.
And Smile.
Not much is happening.
Oh, shit. Shots fired.
All right. Well.
Smile was horrible. Yeah, that was bad. And The Exorcist, that was horrible. There's a lot of those
If you want to hear
movies.
some hot takes on those movies, we have covered all those in our back catalog.
Yeah, they're terrible movies. So maybe you don't want to watch them. Tasha doesn't think Smile's terrible. I'm sorry.
Well, don't give anything away. Stephanie's opinion is only her own. We all have our own opinion.
We all have our own opinion. That's right. But in my opinion, those movies
Stephanie's opinion is not opinion of Pod of the Dead as a whole.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go.
Yes, there you go.
All right, let's hear that 10 out of 10.
There are movies that are loud and upfront with their horror, such as John Carpenter's Halloween. But then there are movies such as Jennifer Kent's The Babadook that are very subtle about their terror, playing off ideas and concepts that leave us a lasting impact hours after the film has ended.
I understand that sentiment because there are films that do that to me.
Yeah.
This one doesn't do that for me, but I can 100% see that stuff like really resonating with some people.
Yeah. This is not meant to bash the wonderful slasher that is Halloween, but instead praise The Babadook for its supreme use of tension and atmosphere to terrify the audience. In this film, Essie Davis plays Amelia, a single mom caring for her young son named Samuel, played by Noah Weissman, who is terrified of monsters, while at the same time dealing with her husband's death. One night, Samuel picks a book, Mr. Babadook, for Amelia to read. It talks about how the Babadook comes and scares kids. Both Amelia and Samuel appear to be terrified from the book. This intensifies the beginning of the horrifying journey. Jennifer Kent has orchestrated a haunting film that leaves a lasting impression. They put impressing and I got confused. From the use of high and low key lighting to amplify the tension of the film, each and every detail is of suspense. As a critique, most horror films nowadays tend to overplay their shock factor or, quote, jump scares in their film. While this might be horrifying, it does not leave a lasting impression. The Babadook achieves a perfect balance between horror and terror, leading us to an utterly terrifying masterpiece. I give Jennifer Kent's The Babadook a 10 out of 10.
Now, it's like, I agree with most of that. Like, it's just a matter of how well per person that works, right?
Right.
But something that I think's funny and not at all like on purpose is that we just covered Sinister and then we cover this and it deals with these creatures in the back and we're dealing with children protagonists that aren't necessarily our leads, but like it deals with that. And it's kind of like in there with The Conjuring. And I actually just watched another movie this past weekend. I won't go into a lot of stuff, but it's called Moon Garden that deals with like a 5-year-old traversing all this stuff. And there's a creepy thing like hunting down the child, and when I was watching that I was like, this is exactly what Tasha was talking about, what she wanted the creature from Sinister to be. Because it literally does not have a face. It's like a white face, but then it's like a hole there and there's just teeth in there, and it's very effective.
It's closer to what I'm going for.
Yeah, like, so if you haven't seen that, check that out. But yeah, like this film, like I think it does really good by like you don't see the creature in full form very often, as far as I remember. It's a lot of in shadow, a lot of in form, a lot of silhouette crawling around. So in that sense, does it work better for you guys than the creature in Sinister?
Well, it works. It works better in the sense of like it's a crawling shadow. I don't think the execution was great.
Okay. How so?
It looked cheap.
You say you burn down the house if you got to. Like, say it.
I'm sorry, crowdfunding people. It looked really cheap, and it took me out of it. Where it's like, where the shadow in some parts just looks like it was drawn on like paint and color, like colored in, and then it's just creeping around. I didn't really care for that.
But wouldn't, and this is, I'm not trying to change your mind, but doesn't that make more sense considering it's coming out of a pop-up book that's how it looks in the book?
But it's not how it looks in the book. In the book, it has its face and everything. In this, it's just like
sometimes.
Yeah, it might make sense. I just don't like it.
Okay, that's all. Yeah,
that's
I was
fine.
just.
It's that easy.
Yeah, no, because I'm kind of like whatever. I like the silhouettiness of it and everything. This movie though, like kind of like with Sinister, where it's like, yeah, you see it. And it could look cooler and whatever, right? But at the end of the day, for me, it's just like I don't want to say forgettable, but it's just like passable. It's like, okay, whatever. Like and sorry, Tasha, not to shit on what you like, but like with Smile when it does its thing and everything, it's not passable for me. It goes under passable, and I'm just like, ugh.
I didn't like that monster either.
Yeah, but I'm just using that as like because like Sinister, this are just like, okay, I don't go like that's fucking cool like when you see the thing, right? So I'm trying to think of anything that's in this kind of set like of movies that when you do see the thing, it's like, oh, that's fucking creepy. And like for me personally, my brain goes back to that Moon Garden film that I just watched. Granted, I just fucking watched it yesterday, but like that's like you see it and you're like, that's fucking creepy. Like the movie itself is more like kid friendly and stuff, but it's really dark and it just looks fucking cool and creepy. Where like this one is it's like a guy with like face paint, and then like Sinister, it's a guy with a fucking Slipknot mask.
I'm so like monster movies aren't my jam to begin with, and like things like this, it's hit or miss. I have like a very specific like what I'm looking for, and if it doesn't hit that mark, then it's just like meh. For a monster, for a demon, for anything like that. I really liked, not to do too many comparisons to Hereditary, which I'm sure will happen.
I think it's helpful though.
But I like how Hereditary did it, where it was the demon, but it was just like an orb. You never saw anything other than the energy moving from place to place. And I really like how that's done, because then it's just embodying the person instead of being like a thing that then somehow goes into a person. I don't like it when it's person looking when it has arms and legs and stands tall.
See, but like for that, what works for me is the idea of, and it does this like in Talk to Me and stuff like that, where it can embody that like literal coat on the hanger in the corner of the room. Like I think it does that pretty well.
Yeah. I guess I forgot that it was. I never made that connection. I thought that was just supposed to trick us to be like, oh. No, there it is hanging on the wall.
It literally is that. Like it's that because it's the embodiment of the grief and loss and depression of the husband, and that's his like outfit that's downstairs. So it's embodying that.
Oh. Yeah, the whole movie to me just felt like one big thing of where this woman hasn't dealt with her grief and moving on with her life, and this is what is manifested because of that, and that's why this random book shows up, because it's like the embodiment of the grief that she's not dealing with. And as she goes to open the book and she reads on, it just consistently it gets worse and worse as she goes, and then she tries to burn it, and it's like you can't just get rid of grief, you can't shove it back, you can't burn it, you can't pretend that it doesn't exist, it's always going to come after you. And that's kind of like this. She doesn't want to sleep because when when she sleeps, she probably has dreams, or she has to deal with all the horrors that she's not dealing with. As somebody who has dealt with a lot of grief in her life, I have nightmares and dreams all the time about my own grief stuff. So I can imagine sleeping, if you're dealing with that, is a problem, especially when and then lack of sleep causes you to go into like manic episodes and like all of this other stuff that kind of transpires. And then you have a child who's also dealing with his own stuff and manifests. Yeah. And so for me, the whole movie was just like literally an embodiment of whether the monster that's supposed to be like a shadowy version of her grief or whatever it is, I thought it was successful. I didn't think it was scary. I didn't think the movie was scary, but I liked the idea of the play on like this woman who is just trying to survive, and then she's just putting everything else besides herself and her mental health and her life on the back burner, and she's not taking care of herself. And she's got a son who's very, needy and all of this stuff for rightful reasons. I mean, yeah. And so she's been a single mom because the dad died on the day that she gave birth, and she doesn't even celebrate her son's birthday on the day because of that, and like all this stuff. So I felt like that was a very good manifestation in this movie, that they definitely did a good job of playing up, like even the madness of like, I can't sleep, I have to, and then she also wants to make sure she takes care of her kid, and like at the same time she's worried about like what she's going to do, because this book is literally telling her this is what you're going to do, which is what people who are in manic episodes are probably in their mind going, I may do these things. This scares me because I am not okay. This could happen because I'm not okay. And so the book is basically showing her these things. And so I felt like in an artistic fashion, I thought it was done really, really well. And
there's something to be said too, that she may have created the book because she is an author. Like, yes, that gets brought up at the birthday party, that might be something like through her, just like all this stuff that she's created it and not even known it and everything. Like, so there's all of that, because at the end of the day, you're led to believe, like we're in spoiler, that the Babadook itself is not a real thing. It's a metaphor for depression and grief.
That's up for debate for who's viewing it, but I look at it as that way.
Yeah, yes. The only thing that makes you kind of go, is the scene where she like feeds it the bowl of bugs at the end, because it makes you feel like it's still real, but at the same time that could be a metaphor. Sense. Yeah, but it could be the metaphor of you're never rid of these things. Right. You just learn how to deal with it. Yep. Like,
and they locked him in the basement where all of her husband's stuff was, and so correct. It makes sense. And then the whole idea of like it dying and then feeding it worms, because worms eat the dead. So like the idea of doing that, the symbolism there, I think is really smart.
Yeah, I fucking love it. Like that, all of that stuff, I think is really well done. Because the way Wesley watched most of this movie with us, I think he's missed just like the very beginning. Is that right? I
think so. Yeah.
But he fucking loved it, because this movie was basically Home Alone meets Hereditary, because when that kid goes ham with like his fucking catapult and his fucking dart gun and all this shit, like
he
it's
stabs
just like
his mom in the leg.
And there is one scene in this movie that, and I'd never seen this, so I knew kind of what the tone and everything of this film was, but the one scene that fucking like I was like, that's fucking creepy and done really well, is after she talks to the old lady next door and she comes into the kitchen to talk to her son and everything. She's like, everything's okay, it'll be all right. I just want you to go where your dad is. Like that whole scene is just like, oh my fucking God. Like she's literally talking to this kid about how she's going to kill him, but it's done in such like an eloquent way that it's like double speak. Like it's just like, oh shit, and then he stabs her in the leg. He's like, I'm sorry, Mom, I gotta save you. It's like, the first quarter of this movie, I'm just like, this fucking kid. But like once you're like, oh no, he's right, he is trying to save her from this stuff, I'm like, fucking get her, kid, fucking get her.
Yeah. Well, he also talks about in the movie, like talking about monsters, and maybe the monster is the idea that his mom's getting worse, and like he knows the monster's coming, and he knows that his mom's turning, and he can feel like the tension building and like all that, because kids are very in tune with their children, their parents, right? Especially when they're that close. And so he as much as like I don't care for kids in most movies, and he had very obnoxious moments, his screaming is so fucking on point. Like I have to give this kid some credit for just just his ability to act completely obnoxious and scream as well as he did. And just, it was so successful in the sense of like, he really did like make you feel that he was like that. So like it didn't feel pretend. It felt like he was actually like a kid having a temper tantrum. And I really appreciated that because a lot of times it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, that and like his cowering when he cowers like in the corner and stuff like that. It instantly, like as a parent, I'm like, poor guy. Like I just feel so fucking bad for him. And so many times, like you were saying, it can just be fucking bad. And like this kid fucking knocks it all the way out of the park in that.
Yep.
Now, like being annoyed by the kid, like that's the point of it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be wearing you down because you're supposed to be like kind of relating to the mother in this film, but then like the mother becomes the bad guy. Like it's a very interesting like narrative how they do that it makes you like, oh, I fucking can't stand this kid. I don't know how she fucking lives with this. And then you're like, oh, it makes sense why the kid's this way. Everyone that comes in contact with this kid is like, I can't hang out with you anymore because you're fucking kid, right? Like to the point where he pushes a little girl out of a tree house on her birthday.
Rightfully so.
Because she's
She
straight
totally
up telling him
deserved it.
that like you don't deserve to have it, Dad. He died because he doesn't want to be around you. All this shit.
Yeah.
And then
she's lucky that's all that happened to her.
Yeah, the scene that makes me laugh hilarious. Like I laugh so many times in this movie, not because it's like cheesy, but just like, oh my God, to put myself in that situation, I'm just like uncomfortable. Like when the guy comes over and is like wanting to like maybe like date her or whatever, and brings like the fucking like model kit and everything, and he's just like, the boy is just losing his fucking mind and everything, and he's just like, next scene he's gone. He just like pieces out. I'm just like, oh my God, I just don't even know how to fucking react to this movie half the time because I'm literally like belly laughing at scenes like when she's laying in bed and the son's like, hey mom, can we do this? And she's just like, I'm hungry, can I get breakfast? She's like, why don't you eat shit? I was literally like, holy shit, Jesus Christ, like what the fuck, man. But when you think about like literal, like I deal with depression and stuff like that now. I've never done that, right? But so much can just trigger you nonstop, and you have to fucking like hold that shit back because you don't want to ruin your child.
That to happen.
Yeah, but like when that happens, it's like I've fucking been there. I have 100% been there where I want to say these things. I want to do this. And Jennifer was approached by many women that had seen this film and was like, thank you for doing this, because I thought I was the only person that felt this way with my children and stuff. And it's nice, not that I think it's acceptable, but it's nice to know I'm not alone, because being and it was specifically mothers, being a mother is fucking hard, and I want to fucking kill my kids sometimes. And like that's what they fucking showed, you know, like, and
that's true.
Whether it's acceptable to be like, I wish you were fucking dead, obviously not acceptable. But like, but like it is, it's like this, I think that's what this movie does so beautifully, is it's so relatable to the things no one wants to say out loud, and it just says it out loud. It's a very human film. Like that's the big thing. I think it's a lot more relatable if you're open to it, right? Like if you're just expecting this to be the next like kind of film, you're not gonna fucking get that. But like with like Hereditary, It Follows, all of that kind of stuff, it makes sense. Is it as sad as other things? That's up to the viewer. You know, if you had lost a husband and been through, I can only imagine how devastating this film could be to someone when relating to that.
Yeah, I agree. It was a interesting movie, and I had to sit with it for a long time just to kind of piece apart things to build your own conclusion, because and then the kid in this, like you are like we said, he is obnoxious, but at the same time he is the most honest of all of the characters in this movie as well, because he is just very forward about how he feels, what's going on. Like he is just in his own childhood way, but like he is very upfront, like, well, I heard you were sick. I'm not sick, you know, like when the guy comes in, like he's just very, this is not it. And then like the whole idea of like when they're talking to the people for whatever that comes to talk to them about him not
like
being in
Child
school.
Protective Services.
Kind of, yeah. And he's like, yeah, we're having a birthday because my dad died on my blah, 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 blah. And like, he's just like telling his whole story. Like, and he's just very forward about it. And I almost wonder if like his character's like this because his mom isn't. She's very much like coddling and like, you know, doesn't want to talk about the feelings and deal with the stuff. So
and every time he speaks to anybody, she's always going like, I'm sorry. No matter what he's saying, like at the supermarket, I'm sorry about my son. I'm sorry about my son. Instead of being like a parent and being like, yeah, that is true. And like actually having a conversation and everything, which you do see at the end. Like if this is part of our life. This is, instead of being so angry at the cards you're dealt in life, she finally reconciles with the fact of your father is dead, my husband is dead, this is our life now. And instead of using that as a shadow that hangs over us, accepting life as it is and moving on. Moving on does not mean forgetting. Like that's the big thing that I think a lot of people kind of confuse. But also like her friend being like, it's been 7 years, you need to move on. This is never helpful, right? Because people process things differently. Granted, she's not processing it well at all. And a proper friend should have been like, hey, do you need help? Instead of, and she calls her out on it, being so wrapped up in her own life and everything. Don't, like, PSA for friends out there, don't pretend you care. Like that's such a problem, I think. If you're so wrapped up in your own life and stuff, I think it's almost worse to be like, yeah, like if you ever need help, let me know. And then like when someone was trying to reach out for help, you're like, I'm too busy. It's like, it's better to not offer the help than to offer it and turn people away. Like be honest with your friends and family and stuff like that. And it goes both ways. If you're having problems, it like, you know, there are people out there that will talk to you. And I've offered this a million times, so I'm going to offer it to our listeners. If you just need someone to talk to, if you are dealing with things, our email is always open. So it's podofthedead666@gmail.com. Hit us up. I'm not a therapist. None of us are, you know. I'm not going to tell you.
Tasha kind of is, but you know.
Tasha definitely has the better background.
Closer, I guess.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you just need to vent and you need someone to talk to, we're not here to fix things. But I will tell you right now, one of us will fucking like be like, oh yeah, no, I understand. I've been through this and everything, and maybe point you in a direction that is helpful. So, you know, like usually, you know, not everybody does have family and friends that they can speak to and everything, but they are there. You know, there is someone out there, you know.
Well, in this movie is the neighbor.
Yeah, 100%. There is somebody that does give a shit about you, whether you know it or not. Yeah. You know, so, and I'm here to say we give a shit about you.
Yeah.
So.
And to add on to that, to someone who might hear that but still not believe it, I'm a recovering person that does that. You're not a burden.
Yeah.
Just explicitly saying it, you're not a burden. We want to hear it. I think that can be helpful too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because so many people are just like, I don't want to bother others with my problems. And you're not bothering them because people do worry about other people, you know? So just like kind of being like, hey, man, I'm having a bad time. You know, hey, I'll fuck, because super side tangent stuff, right?
Yeah.
I deal with like chronic depression and anxiety, right? So like once I actually finally, after an entire lifetime of dealing with this, finally getting rightfully diagnosed and stuff like that, I instantly became loud about it, going, hey, instead of being like, don't tell anybody you're depressed, just being very open about it, because that makes people more comfortable with like, hey, yeah, like, and I've had friends like, hey, you've dealt with this stuff, right? And I'm like, yeah, what do you need? Like, I can point you the way that I went, and you can get the help that you need. If you want to talk to me about how you feel about things, I'm here to listen. I'm not here to tell you right and wrong. I am here to listen though, and give you my viewpoint on it. I'm very open about that kind of stuff. But yeah, like, there are always people. You're not alone. You're not the only person that feels the way you do. Like, and there are more people out there that will give a shit than you believe.
Yeah. Agreed. I agree.
PSA over.
Okay.
Okay, so we've heard the 1 out of 10s. We've heard the 10 out of 10s, right? So let's see what like the actual critics have to say about this film, right? So on Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds now, okay, before I get into this, do not allow this to sway your girls' ratings of the film.
I'm not already wrote my review down.
I know, obviously. I just got to say it, you know. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 98% based on 247 reviews with an average rating of 8.2 out of 10. With the critical consensus reading, The Babadook relies on real horror rather than cheap jump scares and boasts a heartfelt, genuine, moving story to boot. It was ranked the best reviewed horror film and third best reviewed film of 2014 on the site. As of 2022, Rotten Tomatoes ranks The Babadook the 13th best horror film of all time. On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 86 out of 100 with 100% positive reviews based on 34 critics. Glenn Kenny, writer of RogerEbert.com, called the film the finest, most genuinely provocative horror movie to emerge in this still very new century. Dan Schneidel of Movie Mezzanine said, The Babadook is the best genre creature feature since the big black wolf dog aliens from Attack the Block. In The Guardian, Peter Bradshaw described the film as a Freudian thriller, giving it 4 out of 5 stars and praised the performance, themes, and Kent's direction. Bradshaw said that Kent exerts a masterly control over the tense situation, and sound design is terrifically good, creating a haunted, insidious, whispery intimacy that never relies on sudden volume hikes for the scares. In Variety, Scott Foundas commented the production design and direction, saying that the film manages to deliver real seat-grabbing jolts while also touching on more serious themes of loss, grief, and other demons that cannot be so easily vanquished. So, like, when I was saying, like, this movie is widely, like, considered great. So, it's interesting to see that.
I think it's just because it isn't surface level. I think that it's very artistic. You have to go into it, like, if you go into it thinking it's only one thing, it's fine, and you may appreciate it for that one thing. But if you actually dissect it and you go, okay, so it comes out of a closet, well, does it, you know, it's like coming out and dealing with it. Like, there's all these other metaphors in this movie of just things that make sense as to like why it was intentionally done. And okay, so we've watched this movie was written and like made by the same woman, right? Like she did all of it. Okay. So we've watched a lot of movies recently that have been written and directed by the same person, right?
Correct.
This is probably the first one that didn't have a bunch of shit in it that was like unnecessary or super. There was a few spots I was like, what are we getting to? Why is this? But it seems after you watch it for a while, you realize it's purposeful and it makes sense. But like, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. So there's a lot of times when people, just because they are so enmeshed with their storyline and they love it so much, they won't cut stuff, they won't fix stuff, they don't take criticism, and they're just going to make a 2-hour and plus minute movie called Terrifier 2, and so that happens, and then you're left going, what the fuck? And this one doesn't do that, which I think is more successful.
That being said, though, like, using Terrifier 2 as our it's not the same kind
benchmark.
Of movie.
Yeah, our benchmark.
I know.
He edited and everything that as well. So that's like this woman wrote and directed. So there's still an editor. There's still people like going
there's still a team overseeing.
But she also
I 100% understand what you're saying, though.
But she also allowed that, because if you think about it, she could have been like, no, this is my baby. I know best. He could have been like, this is my baby, but I don't know best. I need a critical eye because I'm too close to this. It's no different than what I do for my job. I send my book off to an editor and to beta readers and all this stuff. And I'm like, I have come out to them and they're like, well, I'm sorry if I criticize this or whatever. And I'm like, dude, I don't know if it doesn't fucking exist if you don't tell me it doesn't exist, because I am too close to the project. I cannot give you, I can't get your feedback and be offended by it if I don't know what the feedback is, and I'm not going to be offended by it because even if I don't agree with it, I still have to know it exists. So then if I choose to change it, I can. And I appreciate that about this film, that obviously the person that created it goes, I care about this enough to recognize that I am so close to this that I also need other people's hands in the pot in order to make this a better film and more successful as a whole. So that's the way I look at it.
It's one of those things that, like, there are very few bands that are solely run by like one person. So like early Nine Inch Nails, right? It's all just Trent Reznor. Like that's what it is. And that's very small that like that kind of stuff happens where it's like a soul thing and it works. Most like it's like a band, you know, like this and like critical takes on this. What if you tried this? What if you tried that? And everything. Sometimes that works really well. Sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, it works really well. In other cases, it doesn't, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, because I can't imagine how bloated this film could have gotten.
It's funny stuff how you mentioned, like, you can watch it for one thing and that's okay. You guys and I watched a completely different movie.
See, that's what I wondered. Yeah, that happens a lot between all of us. So
yeah, and I think it takes into account like your preparedness for a movie like this. I watched it on a Friday after work. I watched it because I had to watch it. I wasn't like in the mood for a movie like that. And I think if you're not in the mood for that, it'll still resonate, but it'll resonate in a different way. It'll resonate as a possession monster movie. You won't pick up on any metaphor. So I think that 1 out of 10 watched it expecting something, and that's what they got on a chintzy way of doing it instead of getting the deeper meaning. So when you get the deeper meaning, all of the visual aspects don't necessarily matter as much because you're getting that behind the scenes component. The metaphor, the actual underlying narrative is what makes this movie what it is. If it were solely just like, you know,
like a boogeyman or something like that,
it would not fucking work. It would suck.
Which is how I got it.
But I can see that, like, if you're not, and you're going into it expecting it to be like a possession boogeyman movie, because when I first started watching it, I'm not gonna lie, I legitimately was like, that's what we're watching right now? Like, a book randomly fucking shows up, and then this is what we're fucking getting. But as you, like, go and you pay attention to, like, all the little subtle cues and, like, all the little tidbits that this shows, and, like, very detail-oriented and all of that, you definitely pick up on more. And then after the movie is when I really dissected it more, because, like, I was like, why is there fucking worms being fed in the basement? As you know, why are we doing this? And I'm like, oh well, that's where the husband's stuff is. And like the idea of like you're feeding your, you know, you're not, it always exists. Your
inner demons. You're literally feeding your inner demons.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that idea. So,
and seeing it from the other side, a basement's a general location where they always hide the body. So you can look at it from that way too. It doesn't matter that the dad's stuff's down there. It's a basement.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and it's definitely a good play on that, because like I said, people are going to watch this movie and get two completely different perspectives for that reason. Yeah. So
if I would have went into this expecting, let me think of a movie, expecting literally, like you said, like the boogeyman kind of thing, right? Because there is a movie that came out like just a year or so ago called The Boogeyman, and it's more of like that actual thing, but it was done well. But like if this was attempting to be that, it would have sucked. Like it's flat out would have sucked. But going back to like, you know, like how well regarded this film is and stuff, what is it, Rotten Tomatoes, they had a list of the best horror films of the 2010s. This came in 4th, right behind Get Out, The Wailing, which is a Korean, I believe it's Korean horror film, and then Under the Shadow, which looked like it was an Indian horror film. So like, yeah, this is like, I can 100% see like, not that they're similar, but like tone and like, what am I actually watching when you get with like Get Out? So it's like, as it sits, just like the base layer is like, okay, but it's all the building blocks underneath that's like makes that movie a lot better than its surface level. And
Yep, I agree. Okay.
Let me see if I got anything else. Oh, there is one cringy thing in this movie, and I found what it was.
Okay.
So like every time the Babadook shows up and everything, and it's they're dealing with it, it has a scream. It is like the most intrusive, like. Argh! So the movie actually has a lot of like samples from video games, and that specific sound is from Warcraft 2. It is the sound of a fucking dragon. In the game, and like every time it happened, I'm like, I have heard that fucking sound. There's sounds from like Mortal Kombat in this movie and stuff. It's really strange, and I didn't see anything talking about why those were choices made, but they were. Because that's like when it does that kind of noise, like that screechy kind of thing, it instantly is just like, I'm not about that.
Yeah.
I do like the sound though of like the skittering like bugs noises and stuff like that. I do really like that. I think that was effective. But yeah, dragon noises. What?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
yes. Somebody listened to it and said, we need that in our movie.
I need it. I love that game. I need it.
Yeah.
You girls want to get into our reviews on the film?
Sure.
Yep.
All right. Let's bust this out. I'll start.
Okay.
Well, actually, before I get into that, there was one last little thing. We've talked about the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards before and stuff like that, like in the past. And that's always one that I like to bring up because they actually give a shit about horror films. You're not going to see a lot of horror films that get Emmy nominations and Oscar, all that kind of shit. Or Oscars. Emmys, I think, is music. I don't pay attention to any of that shit.
No, the Grammys are music. It's
Grammys.
TV.
Okay.
It's TV.
Okay.
But the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, every single thing that this was nominated for, it won.
Oh, wow.
It won Best Supporting Actor with Noah Wiseman. It won Best Actress with Essie Davis. It won Best Screenplay and Best Limited Release Direct-to-Video Film. So, it got, because it did get a wide release and everything, but it also, it's one of those things that, it came out for, so much time, and then it went to video on demand, and then, like how the smaller films
some of them do, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I was like, holy shit, it just nominated one. I was like, good for this movie,
Yeah, that's true.
So all that being said, for tone and stuff, I like the vibe of the film. I like the time that it runs. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Because if you added a half hour to this film, say Hereditary, I'll draw that line, right? If you made this film as long as you did Hereditary, it doesn't have the bones to give it an extra half hour. It does everything it needs to do in that time frame. It does not overstay its welcome in my book. The only death in this was the dog, which was sad.
Yeah, that was sad.
But we knew that shit was going to happen. And there was the jump scares in the film. As they did not work on me or whatever, but I think that they were done well. When she looks over at her son's dead, and then the boy's screaming and she's holding the knife, and I think that is such a fucking cool thing. I really thought that was effective and everything. I would suggest people check this out personally. If you haven't seen it and everything, this is definitely one, you've watched Hereditary, you've watched Get Out, you've watched Midsummer. It's have you seen The Babadook? Because it's in that that vein. You should probably check it out. With all that being said, I'm giving
don't
oh, that's right.
Oh, that was a close one.
Shame on you.
What do you girls think I gave The Babadook? I already gave you all that stuff, so that's going to definitely color your
I'm going to say you're going to give it a 7.5.
Okay.
7.75.
I'm giving it a 7.
Okay.
Oh.
I was kind of weighing it. It was in that 7.5 area and stuff. And I was like, there were certain things that I didn't really care for it. So I toned it down a little bit. I said, the screechy noise and stuff like that. And there were there's a lot in this film that I really like, really, really, really like. But there are certain things that I'm not crazy about. And I can't put my finger on exactly what all of them are. But for me, an 8 is something that I'm just I fuck with that movie. I want a poster of it in my office kind of thing. I wouldn't do that with this personally, but I can see someone just being 10 out of 10. This is fucking amazing. I can see it.
I agree. Okay.
All right, Steph, what do you got? I'm going to guess that you give this movie a 7.25.
I think 6.5.
Tasha's right. I gave it 6.5. I think this movie's good. I would rewatch it and get a different perspective of it the next time I watched it. I don't plan on watching it anytime soon. It's not one of those things that's going to be like a comfort watch I'm going to watch regularly. I mean, just the screaming alone would prevent me from doing that. But I thought it was a really good movie based around grief, and I thought they did a really good job. The acting was done well. I thought for the budget it was definitely done well. And I don't have any complaints. Like I already talked about how I felt about the movie overall, and I would say a 6.5 for me is pretty fair. I was kind of, when I first finished it, until I had to kind of break it down, I was like, maybe this is a 5.5. But then after I thought about it a lot more and like recognized a lot of the things that were part of this and how smart I think the film is written wise, and then actually put together properly, that was what got me up to a 6.5. So there you go.
Respectable.
Yeah.
Tasha's giving it a 5.
I think Tasha's giving it, I think she's giving it a 5.
You guys are right. I'm giving it a 5.
Yeah.
Before you go into all of it.
Yeah.
Because you gave it your score before we started recording, right? Like you came up with the score in your head before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, upon second viewing, do you think it would maybe be higher?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm giving it a 5. I'm giving it a 5 because that is roughly the score I give. It's a movie that I will give a second chance to.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
So, like I said, which I love Hereditary. I love Midsummer. I think a lot of it was to do with, okay, now it's time to watch this movie. And I didn't let it sit. I wasn't as present as I usually am upon watching movies because, like I said, it was a surface level. I knew there was a descent into madness with Mom, but the metaphor of the Babadook being grief, I didn't necessarily, that didn't resonate. And that whole story tone, that whole storyline went over my head. It was the Babadook is this creature somehow possessing Mom, and that's what the movie was.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, I have extra homework for you by the end of the year, okay? Because we tend to do like our kind of year-end roundup Gaiden episode. If you can squeeze this movie in again by the end of the year, I would love to hear your second take on it.
Yeah.
Having like kind of like, oh, this is actually what it's about.
Right.
You can watch it with Drew, because it sounds like you didn't watch it with Drew.
I did, and that might have another, though I will say, when we were talking about previous information, I forgot about this part. He had seen it and he doesn't like it. So I didn't, that's not necessarily, I don't want to think that swayed me, but going into it, there wasn't like the conversation.
Correct.
It was almost as if I had watched it by myself, because he was like, I'm here. I don't really care for this movie like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I 100% get that. Like, cause it's not for everybody. Like no horror film is for everybody, you know?
And this is a movie worth talking about, I think.
Yeah. The Thing is for everybody. It's got everything. It's got Kurt Russell. It's got
everything.
It's got Gloop. It's got fucking, Wade. Wade is in the movie. You know, like our dog Wade is in the film.
No.
Like Sky Mall.
Yeah, it's fucking great. So what's that give?
So that gives the Babadook a 62%.
I think that's fair. You know, like people really fucking like this movie. But at the same time, I can't believe when I see like, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes kind of thing from critics, right? That to me, like when it comes to like a film, it's like everybody's gonna fucking love this movie. There's no way. Like this movie, like just the kid alone is gonna turn people off of this movie. But
that went into my score too.
Yeah,
like, I can't listen to this fucking kid.
But it makes so much more sense when you understand like what the whole point of the film is. So it's like I would turn this on, and most people like expecting The Conjuring or something get fucking 20 minutes in this film. Excuse me, my soda is kicking up. That kid's gonna turn you off instantly, and that's actually kind of why I was really reticent of watching this in the first place way back, was just because all I'd ever seen was this kid screaming in the car, and I was like, I don't know if I can deal with this.
Taking fucking weapons to school.
See, now I love that shit. But yeah, so what did you say it was? A 60 what? 62? I think that's fair.
62.
Like you're more than likely going to like this. Like if you listen to us and you like what we talk, like yeah, I think that is 100% fair. I would love to hear what other people's take is on this. So, you know, if you listen to us, obviously you're hearing us, and you want to tell us what you thought of this film, send us an email at podofthedead666@gmail.com. You know, send us like a movie maybe that you want us to watch. The only criteria is that you have had to have watched it. Do not give us Puppet Master 7 because you think it's funny to give us shitty movies that you yourself, the Ginger Dead Man, you know.
Yeah.
I have seen Ginger Dead Man versus Evil Bong. I'm not going to drag that up because.
Thank you.
But if enough people have watched it, Terrifier 2 happened. So just
That's like a really good rec. I'm waiting for a movie that's going to get me in the 8s category. Like,
I'm waiting for a movie to give you a 10. You need to be more liberal with your scoring. God damn it.
I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Whatever. Not in this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. So, yeah.
I will say, though, there is like a calibration I give to stuff where it's like, okay, I think she likes it. Where like I would give it this score if I liked it, then I have to knock it down like 100%. A point, maybe a point and a half.
I do that with both of you. I go like I know what you're capable of giving films. Like Steph is way more. Well, Tasha's way off the fucking thing.
She's worse than me. Yeah.
She's 10s and 1s, but is very specific with what she likes. Like,
yes.
I am definitely like on the higher side, and I give way more horror films a chance.
You do.
And then Steph is like, I will never give any film ever a 10.
Just on principle.
but I'll give everything a chance. So like we're all over the fucking board on that shit.
Well, I'm like that with books too. Like everybody's like, why don't you give more 5 stars? Because most books don't deserve that for me when I read them, unless it makes me have all the feels and I can't stop reading it. So like 3 and 4 stars, pretty average for me across the board.
Out of 5.
Out of 5. Sorry. Yeah, that's true.
Out of 20.
And that's kind of the same thing right here with us when we're watching the podcast. I mean, that for our movies, it's the same thing. It's like that, like very centralized rating system, very hard to get high. And then if it's below, I'm still trying to be nice. Like I'm, trying to be. Sometimes it's hard.
a big thing for me, this is whatever. We'll talk about this in the bonus stuff, the Patreon stuff, right?
Okay.
Like, we'll really get into that because I got some stuff to talk about with that.
Okay.
But let's give out homework for next week.
Okay, that sounds good.
Next week will be our 50th movie reviewed episode.
Yay!
So
Congratulations, guys!
I know we made it, and it's actually a request from one of our children.
Yep.
And I already had it on the list for this year, so I just moved it up. We will be watching Immaculate. That came out this year. This will be our most recent film. It came out earlier this year. It is streaming. I have seen this. Yep, it just hit Hulu. So what happened was Maya was like, hey, you guys should cover Immaculate, because I went and saw it with her in theaters because she wanted to see it because she likes Sydney Sweeney. So she didn't give a shit what it was. It was a new Sydney Sweeney movie. And my rule of thumb is if it's a horror film, you guys want to see it, let me know, and I'll make it happen. So we went and saw it. I had it planned for like December, I think. And she said, it just hit Hulu. And I was like, okay, well, I'll move it up then. All right. So that's what we'll be watching. Immaculate. It's a nun horror film. I'll just tell you that. Well, I mean, it's not The Exorcist. It's not The Exorcist.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's
she really liked it.
Okay,
so.
listen here, guys.
I'm here, so I'm going to give it a try.
That's right. Now, listen here. I take into consideration you girls so much, okay? I'm not giving you the 70s at all anymore.
Thank you.
Right? I keep the 80s less. You know,
80s aren't bad most of the time.
But see, the thing is...
Do you want some more 80s films right now?
I'm fine with the 80s films.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll move some.
Tasha's not. She doesn't like most of the 80s films. I like most of them.
We almost got away.
Why are you talking?
The 90s ones are the best, probably. And then moving forward...
90s and
90s
early
are-
2000s.
Yeah.
Oh God, the early 2000s, Jesus fucking Christ!
Yeah.
But we cover them. We cover everything. Unless somebody brings up a 70s horror film. There's only one other 70s horror film that we may cover eventually. Just because we're not a horror history class, but it's like Halloween's out there. We'll cover it one day. I'm not chomping at the bit. Everybody's covered Halloween,
Yeah.
I try to things that people are interested in, make it a little more, maybe something that you girls will like. Maybe, not always. Sometimes I gotta put a film in there that I just want to fucking watch. I'm talking to you, Dead Alive.
Yep. That was a movie.
But
All
yes.
right.
So,
Okay.
for Pod of the Dead, I am Nicholas.
I'm Stephanie.
I'm Natasha.
Come back and listen to us, or else.